Next up, we're going to have Chris Grant, UX Director at King. Please put your hands together for Chris, and Chris, come up stage.
Presentation. Go now. All right. All right, so afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris, and this is my Twitter handle, Digital Altruist. Feel free to tweet at me now. I will respond later. I won't respond live. I love it. I love to talk to the haters and the not haters, so go for it. I hope to at least piss a couple people off today. All right, so Game UX Summit. Interesting idea for a conference. Great job, the inaugural edition. I'm really, really excited to be here. So far, we've seen a lot of different UX practitioners. We've seen students, a lot of people coming at this from different angles. Guess what? You're going to see an even different angle. You're going to see somebody who leads a team that designs account, CRM, and marketing experiences for players. That's what my team does. And that is on top of the game experience. But reality check, for the players, it's all the same experience. So we have a tendency to look at that as different, as something that's not a part of the core experience. But you know what? Starting on day 2 at King, you start receiving push messages from the game telling you, come back and play the game. You get information about sales. All of that is part of the full player experience. So I think it's really relevant to this conference, and I hope you agree. And it's always nice to have a cherry on top of your sundae, right? Oh, we jumped ahead, sorry. So anyway, it's all right. Learn to improvise. So like I said, we design account, CRM, marketing, boring stuff, stuff that a lot of you game guys don't want to have to deal with. Once upon a time when you were designing the UX for these things, we worshipped, not necessarily at King, but in general, in digital products, we worshipped a false idol. We worshipped conversion above all. And it was the wrong thing to do, but we did a lot of things in service of this false idol. We used dark patterns. We used spammy email. We used misleading and boring copy. And then later, thanks to the magic of mobile devices, annoying push messages. And it was the wrong thing to do, but it had results, and it made a lot of sense. In a lot of ways, we did things backwards. We started with the business goals. We created an experience based on those business goals, and then we hoped that we got to the player's needs at some point. We hoped, fingers crossed. UX was really very much a tool. It was a tool that we used to get something, to get conversion, to get more users, to get more accounts created, more engagement. And as happens when you have one kind of tool, you tend to use it over and over again, and everything starts to look like a nail. Here's the thing, guys. We were wrong. And when I say we, I mean UX people working on these features in general, not necessarily King, but I think a lot of us fell into this trap. And it took the wise words of a sage gentleman who happens to be here today. Don, I hope you don't mind that I'm quoting you. It was actually from the program, so I don't feel bad. To remind us that all design, yes, the quote begins with all design, whether a product, a company, a service, or an experience, ultimately should be aimed at satisfying human and societal needs. So what does that mean? That means that all design, even if you're designing the not fun stuff, the not sexy stuff, the boring account, CRM, and marketing things. So what we had to do was we had to flip it around. We had to start with the user's needs, create an experience, and if we did that right, we would get to the business goals. Makes sense. Thanks to Steve and Apple and a lot of great products, we saw that that was profitable. Took a little bit longer to do for these kinds of features, but we kind of got religion about this stuff. And when I started with my team at King, we decided we would never fall back into the practice of worshiping that false idol. We would always stay true to these principles. So we wrote down 10 of them. 10 commandments, if you will, to guide us, to make sure that we wouldn't make any mistakes in the future, that we would always do it the right way. I'm going to share those principles with you now. First of all, be crystal clear on player value. Sounds very straightforward. Seems like everybody wants to do that, but it can be very tempting when it comes to account creation and all of this less sexy stuff to forget and to think about the business value. But there is player value there, and I'm going to show you guys an example of how we were able to get people to do more of what the business needed by talking to them about the value that we could create for them. Be truthful, but not overwhelming. I originally had this as do not lie, and that seemed a little, well, some people on my team said, like, of course you shouldn't lie. But at the same time, you can overwhelm people with the truth. You know that they say when you go take the stand, the truth, the whole truth. Don't give them the whole truth. Don't necessarily hold things back. But if you're crystal clear on player value, you can edit. You don't have to tell them everything about the entire value that they're going to give them at every moment. You can have extra information in other places. If you're too overwhelming, you can scare players off. And again, if you're crystal clear on the player value, you want them to do the things that you want them to do to get that value. So be careful about scaring them too much. Showing is better than telling, is better than asking. So the best way to freak somebody out is to ask them a question. Hey, are you interested in signing up for this service? It sounds really cool. Tell them you should sign up for this service. It's really great. And because we have a lot of really cool things that we can do in creating mobile experiences, we can make interactive experiences, we can show. And I don't know how many of you guys have the chance to work with copywriters, but one of the first things that we did was we stopped divorcing copy and art. We put them together because in the end, the last thing you want to do is write the script separately from the filming, right? We want to make sure that we don't have to, if we can show it, we do show it. And we only tell it when we have to. And hopefully you'll see that with some of the examples. Match a player's experience level. So this one might seem very straightforward, but again, for the marketing people, it can be, you need to remind yourself about this. So it is very different the way that it should be very different the way you talk to a player on day 1, on day 10, than on day 1,000. Game lexicon's great. We're all proud of our lexicon. Sweet. You know, the candy words live in the hearts of all, but we should be careful about when we use those things because you can freak out a lot of players, especially in casual. I won't speak to mid-core necessarily. So make a point of matching it, and that's always a good idea. Know where your players are at any moment. Also, match their expectations. So one of the things we decided was, and again, I'm going to show you an example in a minute about some push copy that we did, is there's a time to be funny, and there's a time to be cute, and there's a time to just cut to the chase and give the player the message. Do not be funny when they're waiting for their lives to recharge. All they care about is their lives to be recharged, to have been recharged. Do not be funny when their purchase has gone through correctly or you screwed up their purchase. Start with the apology, and then if you could sneak in a little funny at the end, go for it. On the opposite side of the spectrum, if they're not expecting this message at all, if you're bothering them, you at least owe them a smile. So give them a little bit of funny at first. Give them a little bit of sazzazzle to make them smile. And then if they decide not to swipe on your push notification or not click on your email, at least they had a chuckle when they were reading your subject line. Speak human. You did the poll here. Are there any developers here? Okay. I love developers. I work with you guys. Sometimes you don't speak human, let's be honest. Which is great. Shorthand is fabulous. You know, we have a lot of psychologists in the room, and I love to say cognitive load when I want to be cool. You know, dissonance, and I throw these things out, especially in job interviews, because it makes me sound smart. But when it comes to the players, all that jargon, all that shorthand is a crutch, and we have to be very careful about it. We need to always speak human. Sometimes that is going to go against one of the other ones about being slightly overwhelming. We're going to need a few more words, but it's always better to do that, and it's always better to avoid our internal knowledge. Nothing boring. So I have to admit, this is one that we didn't come up with as a team. This is one that my boss came up with when he hired me. And he said, when I asked him the question, why do you want a UX design director for these kinds of features? And he said, my goal is to make these features as engaging, as compelling, and as interesting, or almost, as the games themselves. And that's a pretty audacious goal, right? Like, how do you make an email about a sale that much fun? Well, we try every time to make it never boring. So again, we reward their attention, even if they don't go through, with a little bit of fun. And hopefully, you're going to see what we're doing with some of the examples. This one, I'm sorry. We don't really need this one that much, but I got a lot of UX designers in the house. I got to say this. Never be cool for cool's sake. Do not impress your friends, okay? Impress your friends with how nice a car you drive because you have a lot of players playing your games and people love what you do. Do not worry about your portfolio. That is the worst thing you can do. There are way too many people that really deep down are thinking about how others are going to see their designs. No, you don't get to be cool. You don't get to innovate for innovation's sake. You get to end up being cool if you do the right process, but only casually being cool through a coincidentally being cool. You don't get to start for coolness' sake. And that's a little bit hard, especially in games, because we want to make everything cool from the beginning. Not necessarily so. Flows, not screens. Again, this is a little bit like merging copy and visual from the very beginning. Please be aware, we we strive to be aware of the fact that, the players are not arriving on this screen from nothing. At the very least, they've received a push notification driving them there. Always, always, always be aware of the context. Always think of the entire flow. It is very easy to agonize about a single screen. It is a big mistake. And finally, the final word comes at launch. So King has these great values that we use as a company. We've grown very dramatically. One of them is humble and open, and that tends to be interpreted by a lot of people in the company as a way of being quiet. You speak quietly, very, very Nordic. Speak softly. You don't say awesome like Americans tend to. You're very low-key. That's not how I determine humble and open. Humble and open is no matter how many times we've done this, no matter how great we think we are, no matter how smart we think we are and how many times we've succeeded, we never believe any of our own bullshit until we actually launch the feature. So we are willing to be more funny over time, but we never just assume that the joke is going to work. We never assume that people are going to be engaged. We are always crossing our fingers, a little bit like with this talk, I hope it's going well, until it actually happens, right? And I think that is the number one thing, especially all of you that are designers can leave with. It's a really powerful idea when you flip it and you say, any of these ideas could actually work. Therefore, all the conventional wisdom could be wrong, but I never just get to go, oh, it says so in my book that you're supposed to do it this way. No, you never know until you launch. So those are our 10 principles, and we've been using them, and it's been going pretty well. We've been designing our boring stuff, and feel free to use that hashtag, by the way, not copyrighted. And it's been going pretty well, and we're pretty happy so far. Happy UX designers, that's great. But of course, happy UX designers often leads to something else, which is questioning business people, right? Those designers with their crazy principles, are they really delivering? Are we really getting as much swipe through as we need on our push messages? Or is the engagement level on our emails and our sales as much as we should be? It's wonderful that you guys, not lie or always truthful, but do we have to be 100% truthful all the time? The good news is it's worked. The thing is, it takes more than just principles to reach a universal audience, and this is something I discovered a long time ago. As designers, we have a great way of knowing our users and adapting our discourse to the users, and one of the best ways that we can translate this to a universal audience outside of a game UX summit is to talk about numbers and talk about results. Numbers, in a lot of ways, are the universal currency, except for designers. Designers only care about smiles. Just kidding. So let's talk about results. Let's arm you guys with some real examples that have worked at King at a very, very big scale and that are absolutely bulletproof. And all we want to do is double down on these things. The jury is definitely out about these things because, as we said, it's proven at launch time and we've launched and we know these work. So let's get started. Be warned, these are boring examples, but they do work. So number one, account creation. So account creation on this game, Blossom Blast, where we first tested this stuff out, looked a lot like, I'm assuming on a lot of your games, blue button, says Facebook, says connect, right? Everybody knows that that's the best you could do. You tap on this, opens up a permission screen, and people will will grant those permissions, and then you can send a few invites, maybe. Some companies do that. Not pointing any fingers. Anyway. So when we first started talking about changing this, the first thing that everybody told us was, well, of course, if you mess with this at all, conversion's going to go down. If you apply your magic 10 principles, your 10 commandments, you're not going to get as many people Facebook connecting. Well, guess what? They were wrong. Animation's a bit slower in real life. Okay. So we did a couple things. Number one, we changed around the button. We no longer made it blue. We did include the Facebook logo because we wanted to make sure that people that were looking for Facebook Connect would find it. But we just called it Connect, and we deliberately used a color that was more associated with the King brand. Then this is actually a later iteration. The very first screen was just static. We didn't even have the carousel. Although when we added the carousel, we got another big bump in conversion. We were really straightforward with people. We said, get a King account to save your progress. And guess what? People wanted to save their progress. And because they knew what they were doing when they connected either through email, which was nice to get another option in there as well. Although I will say the Facebook Connect rate itself went up higher. So we didn't cannibalize either. That was the other concern. Everybody said, oh, well, if you put two options, is I love all this conversion, like common sense, right? Everybody knows so much about conversion because everybody A/B tests. Well, what you need to do is you need to A emoticon test. You need to A omega test. If you're always testing very similar things, you're going to get relatively similar results. So we tried doing crazy stuff. We put in this carousel. We saw a huge spike in conversion, a huge spike. And it was so big that we actually, of course, did the most normal thing, the most logical. We said, oh, the data must be wrong. We're not measuring this right. Well, no, it actually did work. The carousel has 3 value propositions: save your progress, play across devices, and play with all your friends, which happen to be the 3 things that you get when you Facebook Connect. We just had never bothered to boil those down and explain them in a very compelling visual. The carousel itself is really fun. I invite you all to download Blast and Blast and give it a chance. Give it a try. Send some invites while you're at it. It actually worked, and we had a really nice increase in terms of conversion, and nobody was able to doubt us about this stuff. So we are now allowed to try a lot more crazy stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but maybe if Celia has me back in a couple years, I can tell you. All right, so open rate. These are really small. Sorry about this. I'll just summarize what these push messages says. So first, a little bit of context. We were running a live ops in Candy Crush Soda for weeks. I think it had been, the time that we started experiment this, I think it had been running for at least 12 weeks. And every week, to let the players know that the live ops was on, we would send them a push message. And we would send, a little bit of fun. We'd say, hey, the live ops is back. We'd say, the live ops, Bubblegum Hill is back. Here's your chance to play again. But guess what happened? Novelty effect went down. We had lots of people come through at first on launch, and slowly people started to swipe through less and less. People were less interested. And what happens? Everybody starts to get nervous, and everybody says, we should probably stop sending push messages. People don't seem to be as interested anymore. In fact, people even started to question the feature itself. Like, oh, if they see these messages over and over again and they're not swiping, they're probably not interested. We had another idea. We applied the principles, and we started to be funny. And yeah, you can read that. So the bubblegum troll decided to troll you, which makes a lot of sense in retrospect. And we didn't invent this. I mean, first of all, we didn't come up with the name Bubblegum Troll, but we just watched social media, and we watched how people interacted with the Bubblegum Troll and how they taunted him, how frustrated they were, how they vented their anger. We thought, it'd be cool. What if he sent out the messages? And what if he called you out every time, like, hey, I'm back. Let's go. We started doing that. Clear uptake in swipe through. We added emojis. Which, by the way, there were a lot of people pushing us to add emojis in the beginning. We didn't do it at the beginning. Because you just don't want to do things for fun's sake. Again, that's not player value. Just cute pictures is not necessarily fun. We added them once it was working. We're actually now, in terms of swipe through, higher than we were when we first started to send the push messages. So when we first launched the feature. Okay? So cool. So funny can work as well. Next example. Account verification. So this is by far the least sexy thing on earth, right? Like, nobody wants to verify their email address. Nobody wants to confirm your account. I guarantee you, all of you out there right now have unverified email addresses. And if you ever get picked up, they're gonna. It's like along with your unpaid parking tickets. They're gonna come at you and say, you never validated that Yahoo account from 2003. What do most companies do and what do most products do? Well, they twist the player's arm or they incentivize. They cut off certain features. They annoy you inside the actual experience. Hey, you still haven't validated. Oh, now your videos aren't visible. Or they incentivize. It'd be an easy thing for us to do in the game. It'd be, to say, hey, we'll give you 50 free gold bars if you verify your email address. We wanted to see what would happen if we just apply these principles. Player value, a little bit of fun, we're really clear. And we were able to double conversion on this email that has nothing more than just asking nicely. Sometimes asking nicely actually works. We did put in a fun subject line. This is Blossom Blast again. We said, be careful. Your email is not confirmed. We tested that against a bunch of really boring subject lines. That one worked a lot. People like funny. They have a relationship with the bee named Blossom in this game. And we told them, in case you need to recover your password, please confirm your email address. By the way, I just realized somebody from my team's email address is there, so nobody email that guy. Sorry, Andrea. I tried to white out everything else. Anyway, so, getting down to like the really hardcore stuff in terms of boringness, right? Am I right? I see your faces. I mean, the post-lunch thing is kicking in. Like, this could not be any more sexy, any less sexy. But I have one that's even more, okay? Network sales. And this is the final example, guys. What could be less apt for using these principles than a network sale? Because in the end, a network sale, what is it? It's a bargain, right? Like, the people, it's the people that are already spending in your game. They want to get a deal. Maybe you'll get people that spent at one point, but it's about the deals, right? It's about the bargains, right? People go to Walmart on Black Friday, not because they enjoy hanging out on Thanksgiving night, but because they want to be able to buy a TV for very cheap, right? That's all that it's about. Again, tons and tons of common wisdom about that. And it's something that's very common in this industry, right? Like, everybody runs their sales around the same time. They put cute names on them. We call them the dress-up sales. You know, it's Easter now. It's Christmas sale. You just decorate. But there's nothing actually behind those. Well, we had an idea. What if we could do that with the sales? What if we could make them, we coined this term, and I really liked it. What if we make them freemium events? So there's cool stuff happening in the game. There's a reason to go play the game, which is we're running live ops. But there's also a feeling behind it. There's a reason why you would want to go spend money right now. And we said, what would be the toughest time to do this? Well, what would be really tough is if we started with the spring sale, which happens to be right around Easter time, right? And we did this last year, and Easter came pretty early. It was in like late March. And we started thinking about it, applying the principles, and we're like, okay, so how do we make a spring sale make sense? Because what happens in spring? Like, it's not in Raleigh. It seems like it's nice here all the time. But in most of the rest of the world, like where a lot of our team is in Sweden, for instance, spring is the time where it's finally nice out. You want to go outside. You don't want to play games. You don't want to sit there with your phone. How do we tell people, oh, it's spring, play more? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Christmas is a little easier. You gotta put up with your family at Christmas time. Everybody wants to play then. Spring's hard. It's a good time. Then we thought about, you know what? It's late May. It's late March. Let's pray that it snows somewhere in the country. It's probably not good weather yet. And what's the worst thing ever? When you feel like spring in your heart, when you need spring desperately, again, it helps working with the Swedes. They always need spring. You're desperately craving spring, but it's not actually coming yet. So that's where we came up with this campaign. I'll let it speak for itself. So play like it's spring, whatever the weather. We have a big problem with King. It's not a real problem. I mean, it's like a first world problem. We have players all over the world, so obviously spring doesn't make sense for everybody. And the weather can be pretty great in Barcelona, where I'm based. By the way, we're hiring. I'm not kidding. Especially UX. Find me after. Weather can be pretty great, but this is generic enough, but yet resonates with certain feelings that we wanted to run it. And guess what? We saw a big conversion spike in terms of the sale. People responded to this. We had more pickup on social media. We were excited about this. And then later, so we did that last year. This year, we decided we were going to double down on this idea. We're going to do it for another sale. We're going to do it for the Valentine's Day sale. Again, question, why would you want to play the games on Valentine's Day, right? Valentine's is about spending time with your loved one. Valentine's Day is about having a nice date and maybe things go well at the end. It is not necessarily about playing a game. But then we had a thought, you know what? I bet you there are a lot of people that play the games that are not going to have a really great Valentine's Day. Because there are a lot of people that don't have a great Valentine's Day. And just like New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day can kind of suck if you're by yourself, right? Or if you're with somebody that you don't wish you were with anymore. So why don't we figure out a way to talk to them as well? And we came up with this video as part of the wholesale campaign. And again, I'll let it speak for itself.
I never really saw myself as that kind of person.
She'd been asking me for weeks, sending invite after invite.
3 years. Wow. I can't believe it's been 3 years.
Until I thought, you know, I should just go for it.
But then my sister, she just kept pushing me. She'd say, go on, give it a try.
I know it sounds a bit cliche, but we just had this amazing connection.
Love at first sight, I don't know. I mean, we kept seeing each other on the way to work, on break, at lunch.
Sure, sometimes it's been hard, and sometimes I even felt like giving up.
And now I feel so liberated.
I'm on level 1034.
Best game ever.
It's love. Love on all levels.
Sugar Crush.
I'm so glad you guys laughed at the thing at the end because we fought hard to get that. They didn't want us to do it. Anyway, to wrap up, obviously this is a team effort. So there's my team doing UX and working on the marketing features, but then we have the developers, the game teams, marketing, and of course the games themselves. You don't create an account in a service or product or a game that you don't love. If everything wasn't great, it would be very hard for us to do. In the end, like I said before, we're the cherry on top of the experience, but it's all about the sundae. But listen, having a cherry on top of your sundae makes it just a little bit sweeter, and so far, sweet's gone pretty well for us. Thank you very much. Mic's open. Not a single question? My goodness. Call bullshit on something. Come on, that's a... All right, there we go.
I guess this is somewhat related.
That's a good start.
So what happened after you guys started trying to go after Candy and Saga for patents? What happened with the business side of things at King?
What do you mean exactly?
Actually, again, the words patented.
Oh, yeah, I can't speak to that.
Can't speak to
Honestly,
that?
it was before
Okay.
my time. I joined in
Gotcha.
December 2014.
Okay.
And yeah, I
No,
know I know it is like, stories handed, like people have commented things, but
No, I was just wondering.
I
if
might
that
feel comfortable
UX
discussing that if I had actually been there, but I wasn't there, so. Sure. Yeah, of course. Let's take my computer down.
How do you draw the line between never cool for cool's sake and innovation for business expansion?
So we have it's a little bit like what Anders said about using other patterns. First of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with being cool. There's nothing wrong with innovating, but you should never set off to innovate, especially with what we're doing. So a game is very different, and I try to make this incredibly clear. Like, we design on the outskirts of that, like account creation, but we got Tom Norman here, like the Nielsen Norman book, like talks about the 99 website rule, and I quote that all the time to my team. Most people spend time creating accounts in other products. We don't have the right to change that flow around too much unless there's a very strong reason related to our product. We should try to make them feel like that. We've been doing some stuff around more social interactions. We're looking at the way people spend most of their time in social interactions, our base, not other places. I feel like once you've established that, once you've onboarded them into that, then you can start to play around. But that was the first time we ever explicitly talked about account. I really wanted to make it feel very similar, but in a fun way, but with a little bit of King magic, to other account creation flows. We looked at Google a lot, for instance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Welcome.
Obviously, Candy Crush has a lot of returning users, people who go to like 1,000 levels.
Uh-huh.
Can you explain some of the strategies, like keep getting people to come back? Or
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would honestly say that for a lot of those people, we don't have to worry so much. I mean, a lot of people that are really hooked are hooked. I mean, a lot of these features are focused on the people that are on the border of that, like wouldn't necessarily come back and have that deep relationship. A lot of what we've been doing lately is about making the existing games themselves very dynamic. So that live ops that I mentioned that was running every week, that was such a huge success in terms of business that we're running them throughout all of the games now. And it's basically like there's a party going on at least every weekend, if not every other day inside the games. And doing that creates a lot of metagame inside the games and a lot of reasons to, what's the thing the millennials use, the fear of missing out? A lot of fear of missing out. People, the FOMO, that's right. People want to be there because they have no idea what's going to happen, as opposed to just like, I got to go back to get from the level 1,183 to 1,184. Well, they know that, but if there's something they can't expect, and that's a little bit like with the magic of the push notifications. When you start being funny and unexpected, they start looking forward to it because they really don't know how nasty the troll's going to be this time. I think we have time for one more. Yeah, last one.
So the principles that you displayed were really awesome. And the biggest hurdle that I've encountered, and I want to know your perspective on this, is how to get the people on the business side to accept and listen to those.
Yeah, so that's the million-dollar question. There's no way I can answer it in 10 seconds. And I literally just met back in Barcelona with a bank asking me the exact same thing. Like everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to get business to allow them to be more more fun and to do more user-centric things. My best recommendation is be a surfer. Look for your wave. When you see something that nobody cares about, but that you know you can do better and you can measure it in a clean, pure way that nobody can argue with, take that wave. That's what we focused on. All those examples really were over time. We started off with very basic things, and then kept doubling down and used the old examples to get us credit to do the new tests. And there's one thing that business has a hard time arguing with, and that's numbers. So you just need your one shot, that one first investment to get those numbers. Okay? Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. I'm off to the ball game. See ya.